most people don't know how to talk to AI. That's a big problem. They don't understand prompts. They get prompts wrong. They don't know how to write it. They don't know how to really come across with what they're trying to get in the output from AI. And then what ends up happening is you end up feeling frustrated, right? And so in this session, what we're going to cover is a lot on prompt engineering for beginners. How do you talk to AI? How do we take these prompts? How do we construct them to get exactly what we want? And of course, we're going to use Alphana to help us with seeing the results of that content. And it's going to help you so you can really master how you can leverage AI to be able to create content from your existing videos. And so again, this is all about prompt engineering. And I want to change the way a lot of people today think about prompts. If this isn't, if you know how to do good prompts, hopefully you'll learn something new today. And if you're just a beginner, it's okay. We're going to dive in. I'm going to show you exactly how we can go there. For everyone who doesn't know, Alphana is a AI content manager. It helps turn any video or audio into over 30 or 50 pieces of content. You essentially plug in a video, and from there, we can extract insights. You can extract YouTube shorts, Instagram clips. You could generate a LinkedIn post, a tweet, a blog post, any of those types of things. Without further ado, I'm going to pop open. I'll share my screen and we'll get started. You should see my screen. You should see my dashboard. This is inside of Alphana. So let's talk prompts for a second before we kind of dive into that part. Why is prompt engineering so important? Why is talking to AI so important? I mentioned it earlier that you can get really frustrated if you don't know, if the AI is not coming out with what you want. So you type something into ChatGPT or into Claude and the results are just, you're like, why did it do that? And it's most likely because you're not giving it more clear direction in terms of what type of content to create. And whether that's in ChatGPT, whether that's inside of Claude, or if you're doing it right here inside of Alphana, you'll never get the right input if you don't construct the precise prompt that you need, because that's what's going to lead to better and more usable content that you're going to get out of this, right? And so we're going to cover a couple examples. And, one of the things we look at is like a vague prompt versus something that's a little bit more well-structured, right? And so I'm going to pull up an example I have here as a demo. And so what you're seeing here is a project, right? Before this demo, what I did was I loaded in a video and it's an empty project. All I have is a description in here because we're going to use this to actually generate prompts and cards on the page so you could see what the results look like live with me. I'm going to give a massive shout out to Jeff Sue. It's actually this person right here. I used one of his videos. He had great insights and I thought it'd be perfect for the demo, and also another follow-up video that I can send to everybody to watch. That also covers a little bit of what I'm going to talk about today. Again, big shout out to Jeff Sue. I'm going to show you some of the insights that we're going to leverage from here now. I want to generate a prompt. I'm going to show you an example. So of course in Alphana, I could take this video and I could generate content from it. What I'm going to do is create my own. I'm not going to use our existing library of prompts, right? So we already have prompts, a lot of them very well constructed. And these are all AI cards that have the prompts pre-built in them. You don't need to use one of those. You could come in here and actually write your own prompts. So if you have your own prompts that you love to do, or you're trying to test this out and come up with prompts that might do better for your business or for your brand, this is what I want you to do. I want you to create a new card, okay? And I'm going to show you here an example of a vague prompt. And I'm just going to say, hey, write a LinkedIn post. Very simple, right? This is very vague. You're not giving it any details. I'm just going to go ahead and say generate. Because this is an Alphana, what it's going to do is it's automatically going to use the video to be able to generate a LinkedIn post. The problem is that we didn't tell it to use the video or transcript. So this won't work every time. In this case, it did, but here it is, right? So now it drafted a LinkedIn post, and I'm just going to read it out loud because there's probably going to be things that are bad in here. Okay, unlock the power of effective prompting. So I'm reading the LinkedIn post. So in this case, it's saying, mastering the art of prompting with ChatGPT and Google Bard has transformed my workflow. Here's the only formula you'll ever need. Task. Clearly start with an action verb. So what this is doing, and this is actually what I'm going to cover today, but there's 6 parts to what's a good prompt. And so what's good is it extracted the insights and put together the 6 prompts, like clearly start with an action verb, context, get it right by answering. So it goes into these details, and it's like these building blocks are what helps you to create good prompts. If you're curious to know more, dive into this practical approach. This isn't a bad post. This actually summarized the video, but for me, it's not the way that I want to post on LinkedIn. I don't want to start with an emoji. I don't want it to say unlock the power. I hate when using words like that, right? Because you could tell AI wrote it. It did give me concise bullet points of the key takeaways. So if I wanted key takeaways in my LinkedIn post, this would be a great way to have those key takeaways, right? But the tone is also not exactly the tone the way I want it, right? And the way it is. Maybe I don't want emojis. Why does it have hashtags on here? I don't want to have hashtags in my LinkedIn post, right? These are all examples of things that I'm looking at this post and I'm not saying it's bad, but I'm also saying it's not what I wanted. How many of you have actually created something and it's just not what you wanted, right? So to someone else, this could be great. This is a big difference from someone being super happy with the output of what content's being generated with AI versus content that someone hates and they're like, I don't understand this, and then they walk away. And it's because if I go back and I click edit and I look at the prompt, I gave it no instructions. I just let AI run off and create a LinkedIn post for whatever it thought that should be a LinkedIn post, but it's not what I wanted, right? So I'm going to actually use one of our AI cards that already has a prompt baked into it, right? And it's one that I know that I've liked in the past, and I'm going to show you the result, and then I'm going to show you and break down that prompt so you could see what it is. So here's one. We have a LinkedIn post called Just Learned. I'm going to go ahead and click on that LinkedIn post. And we're going to now compare the results between the version that I did that was very vague versus the version that was a lot more detailed. After I show you these versions, I'm going to dive a little bit into the framework so I can give you an idea of why and what it looks like before we keep going into more examples. Now look at this LinkedIn post. You could already tell with the post structure, it's completely different than this version. Do you guys see that? So I've got, this LinkedIn post pretty much just said, okay, unlock the power, mastering how to do it. Here's the formula you need. Key takeaways. For some people, it might work great. For me in this example, I don't like it, right? I come back up here and I used one that was with a well-constructed prompt. Let's look at the difference. I just discovered an interesting way to design effective prompts for AI. It's not about writing long questions. It's not about cramming too much detail. The smartest approach is a bit different. Here's the formula for mastering prompts. Number 1, start with a task. Begin with an action verb like write, analyze, or generate. This clearly tells the AI what you want to achieve. Add just enough context. Give specific but minimal information enough to guide the AI without overwhelming it. Think about the user's background, what success looks like, and the environment they're in, right? And third, include exemplars when needed. Exemplars are essentially examples, so use examples to improve output quality. For example, transforming a generic sentence into a precise one can make a huge difference, like improving a resume or a resume bullet. Big help. Exemplars aren't always necessary, but they're used appropriately. They significantly enhance the output. 3 questions to fine-tune your prompts, right? What's the minimal info needed for context? How can I clearly define the task? And do I need an example to strengthen the output? The bottom line, crafting great prompts is about clarity and precision, not overload. What's your best tip for writing clear AI prompts? So you could see that the construction of this LinkedIn post is so different than the version that I wrote with a very vague prompt. So you're probably asking like, well, what does this prompt look like, right? I mean, how did you get it to write it this way versus the other way? So I'm going to go ahead and click edit and we're going to walk through this together. Maybe I'll zoom in. I'll show you this prompt. So automatically, without reading this, you could look at this. Look how long this prompt is, right? It's not just a single sentence. It's very clear on what I wanted it to do. So in this example, it's here's the prompt. Create an engaging LinkedIn post based on the video transcript or text context. So if you see what I did here, I told it not to just create a LinkedIn post. I wanted it to be engaging. Not only that, but I wanted it to be based on the video. It's got to be based on the video, right? So that's one clear direction. Transform a key learning into a new post following this format. So I'm not just telling it to write a LinkedIn post. I'm telling you to take a key learning that you learned in the video and then take that and turn it into a LinkedIn post, right? Very different than the past one. And not only that, but I want it to follow a specific format that's below. And here it's like, if specific metrics aren't available, I want you to use relevant insights and takeaways from the source material. So you see, I'm giving it clear instructions of what to do when something is not available in the video so that it knows what to do when there's contradictory information from it, right? And now I go into an example post structure. And this is an example of an exemplar, right? If you give the AI an example of something that either you've written in the past, or maybe you saw something online and you're like, wow, I really love how that LinkedIn post was written, or that newsletter, or that blog post, feed it to the AI, give it to the AI, be like, hey, look at this. I want you to mimic this. That's what I'm doing in this example. So if you look at this example, it's very close to the version that we did up here, right? And I'll pull this up so you can read it together. I just learned something fascinating about customer loyalty. It's not about happiness scores. It's not about NPS surveys. The best brands do something totally different. Here's what works. This is the hook right here, right? And I wanted that same hook for my LinkedIn post about prompts. And so if you look here, same thing. I just discovered an interesting way to design effective prompts for AI. It's not about writing long questions. It's not about cramming too much detail. The smartest approach is a bit different. So this piques curiosity, right? And that's why with prompts, if you can put in a great example, it'll completely change how the content's written. So it doesn't just sound like AI, and it could sound more like you or more like who you aspire to be. So if I keep going, you'll see that this example is very specific with the number of bullets, the big realization, and then the game changer, and then 3 things to ask yourself. Same thing on how this example post is constructed, except completely different topic because it's all based on this video transcript. So that's the example. Now, aside from the example, I give it some instructions because I want it to be very clear on how I wanted this post to be written. So here's a couple things. Keep it simple and direct, right? You don't want it going off on tangents. So put that in there. Break big ideas into smaller chunks. Use bold formatting for key items, sections, or lines leading into points, hence why you see boldness right here, right? Or if I come up here, you'll see bold, bold. If you wanted to use an H2 font, an H3, specify, right? It's not going to do it by itself, or it might, but it's going to be random until you tell it to do it. You could use numbers to make things clear, which it does. Share real examples, build upon each part that came before, turn ideas into actions, end with a question mark. Credit the source with a simple PS, works great for sharing new insights. And if you don't have numbers, share the key ideas. So look at this, PS, I added that in there. Learn this from an insightful video I watched about prompt engineering fundamentals, right? So I can go ahead and post this about this video that I watched on YouTube, and I could post a link attributing back to the YouTube creator who created it, and I'm leveraging those insights for it. But I had to put all of that information into the prompt so that the AI knows what I'm trying to achieve. That was one example of a prompt. Now, before we go into more examples, I'm going to actually pull up some slides from Jeff himself that I thought was very useful and it might be useful for you. So what is the prompt checklist, right? There's 6 steps for how you want to construct a prompt. And later I'll cover which one's really mandatory. But for now, I just want you to have a general idea so that anytime you write a prompt, and again, whether this is a prompt that you write in Alphana or if it's a prompt that you do directly in ChatGPT or Claude, you're going to want to have certain elements in it to make sure that it produces the content the way that you want it to. The first one is the task. Like, what is the end goal that you want out of this, right? And you want it to start with a clear action item. Like, for example, generate, summarize, create, right? These are things that you want to start off your prompts with. The second one is a context, because this is going to help you to tailor the responses, right? If it doesn't have enough context, it's not going to be good enough for it to actually create the content for you. So give it some background details. So for example, with Alphana, we're basing a lot of the context on the video. But in addition to the video, you could add more context. Like, you know, my business is all about XYZ. I'm trying to target XYZ. And you know, I tend to write like XYZ, like just give it any context that you can in addition to the video, unless you think the video is just right because it's your video, but tailor it, right? You want to give it some context. The third one are examples, right? So you saw that I copied and pasted an entire LinkedIn post written just the way that I wanted it to be. And based on that LinkedIn post, it produced and mimicked that style. And so by putting it in there, it can mimic the style, it can mimic the structure, and it can mimic the tone. So all of that is just extremely important for you to be able to add in there and very helpful. The fourth item is the persona. So you want it to embody like a specific expertise. So for example, are you a world-class digital marketer? So you could say that, like, you are a world-class digital marketer. You are a health fitness coach, right? You're a founder of a, $100 billion company. Or you can even be specific with a person. You talk like Elon Musk, and you're going to build rockets that are going to fly out of Earth and land on a boat, right? You could write it any way you want, but the whole point is that you are actually giving it enough context for other people to be able to, for ChatGPT or for AI to be able to create the content the way that you want it. The next one is the format, right? How do you want it? Do you want it to be very long? Do you want it to be direct and succinct? Do you want it to be in a bullet point format? Do you want it to be in a table, in a markdown format? It's not going to guess. So if you notice in the example I showed you earlier, I asked for it to be in bullet points. I asked for it to use numbered points. I wanted it to be short, right? And the last one is the tone. How do you want the tone of this to sound like? AI kind of writes not great the first time around, right? And like for me, I like to be a little bit more conversational, right? So tell it to write to be more conversational. Or if it was too dumbed down and you need PhD writing level, say that, right? I want you to write it as a PhD graduate, right? Level. And so these are all things that you want to have inside of your prompt. This kind of helps you to see a little bit of like what's super important versus nice to haves, right? Again, if you can, try to include something for each one of these. So you've got mandatory like the task, the context, the exemplars. Sorry, the task and the context, right? You're defining what the task is and the outcome and giving it context. You've got to have that. Without that, your output is just not going to be that great. What's important, but not 100% mandatory, are going to be the exemplars and the persona, right? Exemplars are examples, like the example that I put in there. That post could have still been written pretty well without the example. It wouldn't have been perfect, but it could have happened. But that's important to get it the way you want it to be. And the persona for what it should adopt, right? Digital marketer, CEO, whoever it is. And then the nice to haves is like how you want it formatted. Format, the AIs sometimes could format it pretty well depending on the context of the content. And so, but again, if you want it in a certain way, do it. And tone. I say this is extremely important because so many people hate the tone of how it's written the first time. So you might as well tell it how you want your tone to be, just to ensure that everything looks. So I'm going to show you now another prompt that I pulled in. Again, this source is from Paul Covert. You can see that here. And this kind of breaks down now a prompt in certain sections from persona, task, context, exemplars, format, and tone, right? So it's going to kind of read this together. So in this prompt, it says, you're a seasoned investment analyst with a knack for predicting market trends. Look at that. This is the persona, right? They're a seasoned investment analyst. So you already know the mindset that the AI has to have, and they've got a knack for predicting market trends. So they're there. They predict, they know this inside and out. They know how to predict trends. That's who you want that's crafting your post, right? Now, what's the task? Craft a detailed investment report outlining the reasons for selecting a specific tech stock. Now, this context is super important, right? You could have easily said, craft a investment report. Well, great. What do you think the AI is going to come up with when it comes up with an investment report? It's probably not going to be what you wanted. In this case, why it's so good is because it's telling you it wants a detailed investment report outlining the reasons for selecting a specific tech stock. So the investment report could have just been an investment report that reports on what the financials were of a company and who's investing in it. But that's not what this person wanted. They wanted to outline the reasons for selecting a specific tech stock. So this is the context, the task right here, right? So now that I have my persona and my task, I can move into context. Let's give it a little bit more context. Highlight the factors that make this tech stock a promising investment opportunity. So why is that important context? Because now it's telling the AI that me as a person, I'm looking at actually investing in this company. So if I'm looking at investing in this company, I need to know what's promising about it. And so having that context, it could take a different mindset of how it's going to write this investment report, right? Now, in this example, here's the example. Include examples of successful tech stock investments you've recommended in the past. This is not a prompt. This is saying copy and paste, right? In this part right here, so that nobody on this call gets confused. Where it says this prompt right here, you want to actually paste in the investments you've done, right? Like I've invested in Tesla, Apple, and Nvidia in last year, right? You could put those as example successful tech stocks so that it could look for other tech stocks that are similar to it. Great. Now let's dive into the format, right? How do you want this report? Again, you don't want to let the AI run free and just draft it in any way you want. So tell it, structure the report with clear sections: introduction, company, overview, financial analysis, and market trends. So now I have my sections that it's going to do. If you let it do it on its own, who knows what sections? It could have probably done 20 different sections. And then you're going to look at it and be like, I don't want 20 sections. I want 5 sections. And that's why these prompts are so important, right? I've got these clear sections inside of it. Now that we've got the format, what tone do we want it to write? So for example, when I post content on LinkedIn or Twitter, it's going to be a little bit more conversational. It's going to be a little bit more natural and simple, right? We don't want it to get too complicated. In this case, I wanted to adopt a professional and confident tone, right? So that's completely different. And of course, if we're doing an investment analysis and a report, the audience, they're going to want it to be more professional. They want it to sound confident. And so in this case, it's going to adopt that tone. So this is kind of the high level of how to craft a good and promising prompt, right? And this is stuff that you want to do everywhere. And so I'm going to show you more examples now live in Alphana, because again, I want you to be able to create these prompts, put them into Alphana so that when you try to create content from video, the content's going to come out exactly the way that you want it. Perfect. Any questions so far? If you've got questions, please drop them in the chat. I can answer them live. All right. We got one question. Will we have access to the recording for later review? Absolutely. Usually within 2 to 3 days after we record, we make some quick cuts and we'll publish it on YouTube, and we'll be sure to send out an email to everyone so that you can get access to the recording. And of course, as hopefully everyone knows, we'll be taking this recording, putting it into Alphana, and it'll help us generate show notes and a lot of other details. I love your comment. Tone is very important. I agree. Right. So we're going to go a little bit deeper into some practical examples. Now, I might do a whole session on this in the future, but the first prompt I'm going to be is like, all right, let's generate a newsletter, right? So we already did here a LinkedIn post that we did from scratch, and then I showed you a good LinkedIn post. We're going to try a newsletter. So I'm just going to create my own, and I'm going to do a vague example, like create a newsletter based on this video. So it's a little bit better than the LinkedIn one because I'm telling it to base it off of this video, but it's still very vague. I'm just telling it to create a newsletter. Fantastic. Generate. As this is writing, I just want to think out loud of like how this can go wrong. Are you creating content for yourself, or are you creating content for a client? Go ahead and drop that in the chat, right? Do you create content using Alphana for yourself, or are you thinking of using it for yourself, or are you using it more for a client that you work with? And the reason I say that is because, for example, in this example, it's almost like I'm writing the newsletter to send out to my own audience, right? It's like, mastering it, it's like, hello, welcome to this month's newsletter where we dive into XYZ. But what if I need it written in third person? What if the newsletter is not for me, but it's for one of my clients? Alphana, you probably set up in your custom instructions, right up here, information about yourself. And so do you want that information to be included in the newsletter? You probably don't. So you might want to refine the prompt and give it clear instructions of who the audience is, the name of the client. Is there a name of the show, right? Because in here, it's not going to have the name of the show. Okay. But it drafted a newsletter. It gave me a title, Mastering Prompting, a Simple Formula for Success. And it's like, hello, tech enthusiasts. Well, let's stop for a second. Is your target market tech enthusiasts? And I'll check my custom instructions to see if I have that in there. I don't. So already you could see what's wrong with this newsletter. It's not going to be perfect, right? Because we didn't give it any context. And I see you, Jess. So you use this for both yourself and a client. So this is going to help hopefully tremendously, because the content that you're going to create in here is going to be able to be tailored toward either yourself or some of your clients' needs. But again, this is going to be wrong. So I can't use this newsletter, right? If I just look at Alphana, they're not all, I mean, yeah, they love, maybe a lot of people like tech, but that's not exactly who our target market is, right? Welcome to this month's newsletter. Well, let me ask you something. Am I sending out a newsletter every month? Do I send it out every week? Am I sending it out twice a week? So if I say welcome to this month's newsletter, but yet I'm sending newsletters out every single week, already I'm not going to be happy with this output, right? But let's ignore some of those details. So it starts off with an intro. Now it's like, all right, the only formula you need in the latest video, this is what they talk about. It recaps the video, and then it talks about making your prompts count, create smart prompts, upcoming content. Jeff's next video promises to take you from beginner to pro. Okay, fantastic. And joining the conversation. So to support more content like this, subscribe to the TV newsletter, which covers Google Workspace tips. So this is actually pulling insights from the video, right? So Jeff and that newsletter and Google Workspace is pulling that from the newsletter, from the video. So how do we make this prompt better, right? I'm going to put in another example that I have, right? And I'm going to put it to compare. So I'll just create a new card. All right, let's start with this. Based on this video transcript, write an engaging newsletter that covers the insights from this video. All right. Structure it into 3 sections. Let's see what else we could do. Keep the tone maybe enthusiastic and engaging. So I'm just going to make it a little bit better. I'm telling it I want it in 3 sections in this example, and I'm going to go ahead and hit generate. Let me pull up this prompt quickly. You'll see that this newsletter looks completely different. Again, not saying it's perfect, but just showing you how this gave me a different result. It gave me mastering prompting with ChatGPT, your path to engaging conversations. Okay, welcome to our latest edition where we dive into the art of creating effective prompts. In here, like some things that I could tell already I don't like. I don't want it to label it section 1, section 2, section 3, but I can put that in the instructions. This is too lengthy. I didn't tell it to write shorter and more maybe bullet point format, right? But it did give me the 3 sections, right? And so that is one example. All right, let's see if I could pull up another example. Let me see what ours, I don't have it here. So I'm going to put in a new one. Based on this video transcript, craft a thought-provoking newsletter that translates the key revelations into actionable wisdom for our community. Begin with a bold, unexpected perspective that challenges conventional thinking on this topic. Then weave the transcripts insights into 3 distinct sections. So now this is going a little bit more detailed, right? We wanted to cover the paradigm shift, so highlighting the most transformative concept from the video and explore how it reframes our understanding of it. Practical applications, so extract specific strategies or techniques mentioned and enhance them with complementary resources. And then the last one, future horizons. Extrapolate where these ideas might lead, including potential innovations or societal impact. So this is pretty detailed on how we want it, right? We're also telling it to incorporate metaphors for nature and technology and to illustrate complex points. Pose 2 to 3 reflective questions throughout the prompt that prompt readers to connect the content to their own experiences. Maintain an intellectually curious tone that balances expertise with accessibility. Close with a memorable final thought that resonates emotionally well, reinforcing the core message. If you look at this, right, it's so specific on how we want it to be, but we don't have an example in here. So we could show, and I'll pull this up so that you could see what the example looks like. And then just to see how this looks, and then from there, we could probably grab a good example and copy and paste it inside, right? I think let's just go ahead and hit generate. All right, so if we look at this now, we got disrupting the dialogue, rethinking the power of prompts, right? In a world of technology evolves at the speed of light, a bold reimagining of how we converse with machines is emerging. So this is kind of an intriguing way to start versus the other versions of it. Here we talk about the paradigm shift with prompts with a reflective question because I asked it to have a reflective question. In this case, now it's talking about, all right, what's a practical application? So mastering the flow. And here it dives into those points. And then over here, future horizons, envisioning tomorrow's dialogues, right? And so it breaks that down. This is very out there. This type of prompt is completely different than what others would look like, right? But at least it gives us a way to be able to construct a newsletter in a different way, right? Now, later I'll show you like even better newsletter prompts that we do. That'll be in another discussion, but I want to take questions so far before we keep going, and I'll go into another example. One of the problems I have seen with AI for email marketing is that it generally does so just like you have there. It doesn't take into account the need for design. I see what you're saying. So it doesn't take the account for design. More and more people want to quickly get the information. How can we add in some details on how we want it formatted? You're completely right. It doesn't take into account for design, right? And that's always going to be a problem with just pure AI. So essentially the way we would look at this is probably constructing parts of what you want in the newsletter. So for example, if your newsletter has like 5 different sections, like here you talk about an intro, here's a fun fact that has nothing to do about the video. And then you're like, all right, here's our ad sponsor. And then you got another section that's like, all right, we just watched this video that was 2 hours long and I'm going to break it down for you inside of this newsletter. Then you can have that section below it. So you want to kind of figure out how your newsletter is going to be constructed and then figure out where for placeholders for like design and images or content that you're going to put throughout, right? So that way, when we're going to go ahead and put this inside of a newsletter, you have something that you can copy and paste, but then you can interject like an image here or an ad sponsorship piece here. So it's really about customizing it to be the way that you want it to look like. Does that make sense? This is another newsletter one. And so you'll see this one's completely different. We're going to see together as a group how the result of this looks like. Based on this video transcript, create a scannable, visually oriented newsletter that prioritizes quick information consumption while following modern design principles. Okay. Maybe this will help with the formatting of this. And so in here, I want a concise 5 to 7 word headline in the title. I want you to extract a key insight with a visual cue. Again, not saying it's going to be perfect, but this is something that we can do to kind of make it a little bit better. And then we're providing a lot more formatting instructions, right? So let's go ahead and hit generate. So this kind of gives you a setup for like showing you how to do things, right? So it's giving you key insights, but the reality is this would fit much better if you had a nice graphic right here that you can put with it, right? Like begin with a task, like generate to clarify goals, align context for desired outcomes. And then you could put a nice visual image, right? Key insight 2, boom, nice image below it. And then key insight 3, you could put another image or something below it, right? For design. And then the action will take away. I mean, this newsletter is probably too short, but it would be more like an email that you could send to people if you're trying to extract 3 key insights for someone. I guess what we could do is probably go on to maybe another example that could be super helpful for everyone. Is there any other types of content that anybody would like to have? I think one of the ones that I'm going to look at is probably a blog post or let's do a thread, Twitter. And I think Twitter is super important. One, the platform's growing tremendously, but number 2, I could show you clearly how a thread would look like there versus how we can construct one. So I'm going to come in here and say, hey, based on this video transcript, write a Twitter thread, right? And we could see exactly what it's going to look like. So everybody could see here what this Twitter thread looks like. I'm turning this video into a Twitter thread, but I'm just using the generic one without actually giving it any further instructions of how I want this to be. And maybe it's not bad, right? So thread mastering prompting on ChatGPT. Want to get the best out of ChatGPT and Google Bard? Here's the only formula you'll ever need for crafting perfect prompts. Not a bad prompt, but it's not formatted the way that you would want it formatted for Twitter, as an example, right? So definitely I wouldn't use it exactly like that. I'd have to go in and do a lot more formatting. And then it talks about understanding the 6 building blocks, task, context, exemplars, etc. Knowing what goes where makes a huge difference. So again, not bad, but it's got emojis everywhere, right? I don't want emojis on everything. The formatting is not great. They're just like one-line sentences. Now, each sentence is concise, so that's not too bad either. But we need to get this to be a little bit more specific. So what am I going to do? I'm going to pull in a prompt that should work out much better. I'm going to create a new one for Twitter, and let's put it in. Now, you'll see this is not just a write a Twitter thread, right? I've got a very long and very specific of how I want this Twitter thread to look like. And before I click to generate, I want to dive in with you so you can see this example. All right, create a viral Twitter thread. So in this case, I'm saying I want it to go viral, right? So viral Twitter thread that are 7 to 12 tweets long, right? So don't give me something that's 20 and don't give me something that's 5, right? I'm very specific saying that I want this thread to have between 7 to 12 tweets based on the transcript. To make it very clear, you could change this and just say, hey, I want 10, right? Now, I gave it context like it's based on that transcript. I want it to be more conversational, relatable, and to keep it natural because that's how I want it to sound, right? So I'm talking about the tone here. Make it conversational, make it relatable, keep it very natural, right? Don't write like AI is essentially what I'm saying here, right? Don't write like AI, just make it more natural, more human. Now here I'm saying, all right, I want you to alternate between these 2 tweet formats. I've got the narrative style and I'm being very specific, right? Attention grabbing statement, supporting insight, powerful follow-up, right? And then I'm saying here, give it to me in a bullet style. And number 2, the same thing, but different. Main point, supporting evidence, key takeaway. And then I'm very clear on how I want the format, right? We talked about this earlier. We want the format to be very clear. So we're going to start with a narrative style for the hook. We're going to alternate between styles throughout the thread. We're going to use a narrative style for big claims and insights. It's going to be bullet point style for breakdowns and examples. Each tweet must have 2 to 4 points with line breaks, double space between, no emojis, no repetitive, numbers at the start of the tweet. So we go very detailed into how we want the format. And then the kicker again, let's put an example. And here's an example. I gave it the example for the first 3 tweets, right? And you could see here, most founders get this completely wrong. The best products don't start with solutions. They start with burning problem that keep most people up at night. So this is essentially telling it how I want each tweet to be constructed. You see how the different formats are different? Woo! Again, excuse my voice. I have been losing it all morning. So here's my Twitter thread. I'm going to go ahead and hit generate. And again, this was the old one. And now we're going to see the new one right here. We'll just give that just a moment. Look at this. The format is completely different. Look at this. Not only that, but I was very specific. I wanted 10 tweets. It gave me 10. Look at that. Again, if you look at this version, this one gave me 10, but I didn't ask it for it. So, okay, that was the same. But look at the format of this. Is this a usable Twitter thread? Or is this one a little bit more usable? Now, let's deconstruct this and talk about why, right? The first tweet in a thread is so important. That's your hook. And the hook, the way it's framed on Twitter visually is so important because if you put a blob of text, even if it's the best hook in the world, but it's just a blob of text, people aren't going to be able to skim it quickly to read it, to know if they want to jump in. So if you look at the difference here, look how the hook is written. Ever wonder why some prompts just don't work? The secret isn't just in what you say. It's all about how you say it. Get ready to change how you see prompt writing. So if someone read this and you need to understand and learn more about prompts, you're going to move on to the second tweet in the thread. But if you don't get past this, you're never going to go to the second one. That's why I have a very specific framework of how to write these tweets. And by the way, this is already baked into Alphana. So we already have a Twitter thread that drafts it exactly like this for you. And so now I go into the second tweet and look how it interchanged with the second format that I put as an example in the prompt. Here's what a good prompt needs: a clear task. So always start with an action verb. Context matters. Give enough background without overloading. And then examples help. It improves the quality by using relatable scenarios. So you can see here already, I'm giving information, I'm interchanging with how the tweets are, And then I go into the next one that's like, it's not enough to give it context because without a task, your output might be meaningless. Balance is key to getting the results you want. So it just keeps the person hooked to want to continue to read each tweet within the thread. Now, for those of you that don't know, the more time that somebody spends on your post on Twitter or X, right, or LinkedIn, that helps the algorithm know that your content was engaging enough for you to keep you on the platform. And not only that, but if it's good enough, then they're going to start liking the individual tweets inside of your thread. That's another signal for the algorithm to show your content to more people. And if everything was really well, they might drop a comment, which is another signal for the AI. And the different platforms, their algorithms work differently. But in the end, it's about you engaging the person that you're in your audience. Whether it's a video that you post on Instagram and that video has a great hook and it kept you watching, they're going to track the amount of people that are watching. And the thing that Instagram really looks for are people actually sending this video to someone in their DMs, right? Those are all signals. But that all comes to how you prompt. The same thing for Twitter and maybe for LinkedIn, right? When people clicking on read more and expanding, you want to have a good structure. So prompt engineering and learning how to talk with AI is so important because it's, number one, it's going to produce content that you like more, but it's also going to produce it in a better way that's going to resonate more to your audience on different platforms. Don't slack on this part. That's what I say, right? Just, you know, look at these prompts, write them. And again, these are very long. They don't need to be that long, right? We do a lot of this work for you and put it into Alphana so that you could just come in here and be like, you know what? This exact thread, if I come in here and I'm going to type a thread, I've got different Twitter thread. The one that I used in this one was called hooks and thread, a list thread. I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And you're going to see it might be a little bit different, but it's going to give you the same output. So you don't even have to know this prompt, right? You could just put it in here. But I want you to learn these prompts and how they work, because then you can come into Alphana and you can edit all the stuff that you don't like about the prompt, right? Like you may not like the exact style. So here it is, copy it, change the part you don't like, and then create your own card. Or if you're just trying to go back and forth with ChatGPT or Claude, I want you to be able to know how to prompt it. Again, they could be short, but just give it enough context. Tell it an action of what it's going to generate, right? Give it an example of how you want your content. Tell it the format, tell it the tone, right? Be more clear with it. And you're going to see that your conversations with ChatGPT, with Claude, or any of the other platforms, it's just going to get so much better. Any other questions? I've got one. I use prompt engineering for lots of different things. In a previous role, I used it to help write provider bios. I love it. That's such a smart idea. You could definitely use it to write bios. That's amazing. You probably, I don't know if you've ever thought of this, but if somebody was talking about themselves or there was an interview about a person, drop it into Alphana and have Alphana extract those insights to write a bio. I used their CV resume and a questionnaire we asked them to fill out. Oh, that's awesome. So you use the context they gave you. It's the same thing as using video. But in this case, you're saying you grabbed somebody's resume, their CV, and a questionnaire that you had with them. You put that into probably ChatGPT or Claude, and then generated content from it. And you're right, with the right prompt engineering, you could really construct it in the right way so that the bio comes out the way that you want it to be, right? Actually, I was playing with an example, and maybe I could throw that in here. Let's see. So there's something called the STAR framework, right? A STAR answer. You can use that to take like responses and to generate it in a certain way. I think I might leave that for another video, but so I want you guys to stay tuned, but there's so many things that you can extract from content and interviews, which is very exciting. All right. Any questions, any thoughts? Was this helpful? Did anybody learn anything new today? Or tell me what's something new that probably helped you out today, if any? All right. So I got somebody who wants to use Alphana to help a personal trainer, wellness coach to build his thought leadership. The biggest thing with this is that you can leverage so many great insights to put content. There should be no reason you can't post on LinkedIn, on Twitter, a newsletter, a blog by doing this. And again, with the right prompts, you could generate almost anything. I'd love to see some of the prompts that you guys generate, and it doesn't have to be on this live session, but even if you shoot it to me in our support chat in Intercom, or post it in the community. I'd love to see any new prompts that you guys are creating. And if you need help in actually making them better, I'll help you with that as well. So you started recording all your conversations in Google Meet. Beautiful. I record all of my meetings as well. I've got my AI note taker for me. It helps, it generates a transcript, and lots of times I throw that into Alphana. So I'll throw it into Alphana and be able to either generate content, extract insights, or help me kind of dive deeper into things. So I love that. Everyone should be recording their meetings if they can, if their job or their client allows it to. That's great. So you said great insights, especially how to write detailed instructions. It's always good to see examples. I love it. Yeah, examples are so key. And I didn't show this before, but like you can always reverse engineer any, output. Like, grab on LinkedIn or on Twitter or a blog post that you like and just ask ChatGPT or Claude to help reverse engineer it, So you could always take it, copy, and then throw it in somewhere. I don't know if it'll do it right here, but can you, reverse engineer this example into a new prompt I can use with AI? It's not going to be perfect, but this will give you the high level to start with, and then you test it and you refine it until you get your prompt. And I do this all the time. If I'm trying to get an output to a certain way, I'll kind of start with showing it my output, help it create a prompt for me. I'll refine the prompt into the structures that I showed you. And then from there, you could take it and do something with it. So it's going to work out better in Claude. I love using Claude to draft brand new prompts, so I highly recommend it. This is obviously pulling in context, so it's not going to work as well here, but grab the prompts or grab an example, create a brand new prompt, and use things like Claude or ChatGPT to help you with it as well. Then grab those prompts and put it into Alphana or use it yourself in another chat. These tips can be used in Gemini as well. A lot of what I covered today applies to many of the chat platforms, right? The differences are going to be the reasoning models. So, not to get too technical, but if anybody's using like, deep research or chat or like, any of the reasoning models, a lot of it is relevant, but you're probably going to be less specific and you're still going to give it enough details and context, but it's a little bit different. And so I'm covering mostly mainly normal GPT-4o, Claude, Gemini. Most of these should work across the board. Awesome. I am super happy everyone was here to be able to join. Before I wrap that up, we saw just one more question. Let me grab that really quick for you guys. Currently, I'm trying to automate to create LinkedIn slides with the right amount of text. I'm sometimes struggling with it because AI sometimes just gives me too much text. Okay, that's a great point. It's connected to the design topic recently mentioned. Yeah, I'll see if we can have more examples that we talk about later. But, and if you want to shoot me a message offline, just within our app, just shoot me a chat message and, put talk to a human. That'll come to me and I can help you with refining that. And I'll try to do a video to help with examples and maybe we can cover that in another session. Because you're right. If you're going to put something in a carousel image or text or something like that, you want the text to be a lot more minimal and we just got to give direction to the AI. Like, hey, I want you to come up with a title, no more than 7 to 10 words. And for the sub description, make it a bullet point. That's again, no more than 7 to 10 words. I'm very specific. That's how specific I would recommend that you would do when you're trying to get short points. And then we could put more details in there. So Dominic, go ahead, shoot that over to me if you want, whether in the community or message me within the app. I'll help you with that. And guys, please shoot me in advance any emails or messages and let me know. Is there anything else you want us to cover in our next weekly insider session? We're going to do this every week. We've been doing it for the last couple of weeks and we'll send out a replay to everyone to enjoy it. Awesome. So again, thanks for everyone for joining the weekly Insider Live. I'm Sebastian Mora. And if you don't know, I'm the CEO and co-founder of Alphana. It was amazing to be with you all here today. And for anybody who watches this video later, feel free to reach out. I hope you enjoy it and I'll see you next time. Take care, everyone.